All right, so in today's class, we will be discussing chapter number 7, the system's life cycle. And in this chapter, we are going to discuss regarding the analysis stage, design stage, development stage, and implementation stage of your software or your algorithm. So, before initiating with the lecture, can you briefly explain me that what do you understand by a life cycle? Anything that comes into your mind?
If I take an example of a human, then a baby into a toddler, into a kid, into a teenager, into an adult, and then yeah,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's
then into old
excellent.
age.
That's excellent, Beta. That's excellent. This is what that I was hoping to get the correct answer from you. That means that our life cycle is based upon the our age group, right? That means that first of all we grow up, and then as we grew up, we have our school, we have our college, we have our university, right? That is our life cycle. So, but certainly you have a life cycle of any object. You can have a life cycle of any software as well. So regarding this course, we will be discussing about the software. So this says that this is basically a life cycle of the system. That means that we are going to recognize that why there is a need for a system and how I am able to create that. So first of all, in the if I'm discussing a life cycle. So it is not a life cycle of any human or animal or any object. Now I'm basically referring to the system's life cycle in your ICT. That means that now you are working with your software or with your program, right? So in this example, I think did we discuss this?
Yes,
Yes, we discussed this. I'm just giving you a short recap of that. That, for example, if you're working as a system analyst, first of all, if you want to create a software, you first need to analyze all of the tasks. And what do you understand by the analysis?
observing.
Yes, good. Analysis means that you first of all need to observe that what are going to be the conditions and what are going to be the requirements of your program before you are creating it. So first of, for example, if you are working as a system analyst or if you are working as a business analyst, the work of an analyst is to brought down a whole of the process on into a documented form so that your technical or non-technical team can understand. For example, if I give you an example of a company who has their computer systems and they want to update it, so this is going to be the task of your business analyst who is going to take into account all of the considerations and they are going to change as per the requirements of your programmer. So the system life cycle has basically four to five different stages. First of all, you make analysis, then you create your design, then you go for your development testing, then you go for your implementation, documentation, and evaluation, as we discussed. So, as you shared with me, sir, in this program cycle, first of all, we have analysis. But what do you understand by the term analysis? Analysis means that you need to research your current system, that what are the weaknesses, what improvements you can make into that system. In your analysis part, you can even identify your input and output processes as well. You can even check the processes that are already taking place or the processes that has to take place. You can also check the problem with your current system and your user requirements and your information requirements. You can even identify hardwares and softwares. But basically, in an analysis part, that means that I am only observing and I'm only taking into account, or I'm jotting down all of the analysis into a piece of paper so that later on I can work on it. Right? In our last class, we discussed that there are three to four types of analysis. Now, can you explain me each of them one by one?
Observation, like mm,
Mhm. Beta observation is involves, this is an example of an analysis, and observation involves when you are watching individuals using the existing system to find out exactly how it is working. there can be some advantages of that system, and there can be some disadvantages of that system as well. Yes, Sayeda, you have the floor. Hello, Sayeda, beta, do you have a question? Beta, can you hear me? Is there any beta? The class for IGCSE Computer Science ICT is going on. Uh, you are a student of O levels or A levels? Can you define me your grade? I'm going to take a current example of this process in your program development lifecycle or your the systems lifecycle. That means that, for example, if you're working in a company and you have a number of computer systems that you wanted to replace it. So this is an example of a system lifecycle. How is this possible? Because now I'm referring to the systems, I'm referring to the computer. So first of all, what is the very first thing you are going to do when you are working with and when you are working with the systems lifecycle or the program development life cycle? The first thing you are going to do is, first of all, you are going to analyze all of your current problems. Those current problems can be certainly that if your current computer is becoming obsolete, and if there are any certainly any number of changes in your taxes or in your laws, or there can be that if you require even more efficient hardware for your programming, or there may be a need to expand the company. That means that now, if I am explaining you regarding the systems life cycle, that means that first of all, I take an analysis. I put all of my account into consideration that what are going to be my ins and outs and consequences of that. So the system life cycle is consist of analysis, design, development stage, implementation, documentation, and evaluation. And one by one, we are going to discuss each one of that. So, in your analysis part, this is pretty simple. You are only going to analyze all of your current system requirements. You are going to check that which value I am adding into it and what is the output that I am generating, how much the process is taking place, what can be the problems with my current system and what can be their certain solutions. I can also check my user requirement for the new system as well, for the what is going to be my information requirement. And the last thing is I'm going to identify the software and hardware. So analysis basically means that you are analyzing your current system. You are taking an analysis of any of your current problem. So there are certainly four types of analysis categories. First of all is the observation. Second is the questionnaire. Third is the interview, and fourth is the examination of existing documents. So one by one, I'm going to discuss each of them. Yeah, I'm going to discussing each of them. And the very first example in analysis, I have the observation. Now, in your observation part, this method basically involves that you are watching and you are closely looking your individuals who are using the existing system to find and to check that what is exactly working or what is accurately working. However, this observation in the first task can have any advantages and disadvantages. The advantages it has is that the person who is keeping and check or who is observing all of it can get a reliable data for on to whom he can work. Second advantage is that it is also possible to get an overall better results of that. And the third point can be that it is relatively inexpensive method because it involves the analyst. The fourth part is that all of the input and output of the current systems are seen. This is the advantages of the research method. And even If I talk about a program development life cycle or if I talk about a systems life cycle, the advantages is right in front of you. There can be a disadvantage of observation as well. Disadvantage can be that you might be feeling uncomfortable when you are being watched, or I can say that certainly that if I'm being watched, I might be not be able to perform good. Or there can be certainly things like that, that if you're watching someone, observing someone, there can be something like that if they are putting more efforts only onto that time than when you are watching or observing them. And when you are not observing them, they might be wasting time. So it can create some problems into your report. Is this clear to both of you? Do you have any questions in observation? Beta, fourth advantage I have right here is that all inputs and output of the current system are seen. You first need to understand what is an input and what is an output. The value that I enter into my computer, this value is to be known as an input. And the value that is displayed to me as an example of a result, this is to be known as an output, right? For example, if right now I am teaching both of you with my voice, right? That means that my microphone has an input value, that is a microphone, that means that my voice is being pass through the microphone into my computer system. And if you are listening my voice with the help of a loudspeaker, that means that an output is being generated. So an observation means that your input and output can be clearly seen or can be clearly observed. This is I take into account before I develop a solution to any computer problem. Do you get it? Do you have any confusion? Okay,
No, I don't have it.
now the second part is your interviews. A bit interviews, so you might be knowing it already as well that this method involves a one-on-one question and answer session between your analyst and the user. That means that if the analyst want to go deeply or into your program or current system, we take help of the interviews. But it has an advantage and disadvantage. Advantage is that it gives the opportunity to motivate the interview into giving open and honest reviews and honest answers. This method also allows the analyst to give feedback to your interviewee questions so that those questions can be duly answered. The third thing is that it is also possible to modify questions as the interview proceed and ask questions that are specific to the interviewer. The fourth advantage can be that analysts can watch body language, their facial expressions, all of them. These are some of the advantages of them. However, there can be some disadvantage of interviews, that it can be a time consuming. It is it is really expensive because while conducting interviews you need a team of interviewers, and then you will also be needing an analyst to judge. Now you also need to understand what are the primary responsibilities of an analyst. An analyst is going to take into account all of the changes that has to be made, and then it is also it going to connect you with the technical and the non-technical team so that you can solve your problem. So what can be the disadvantages? Where that is that interviewees cannot remain anonymous with this method, and they might be hiding their information or they might be not be honest. Interview can give answers. They can give answers. They think that the interview, yes, yes, definitely. Sometimes you only give replies to those what you wanted the other to hear. So there can be some wrong data as well. And yes, interviewer or interviewer may not be available at the same time slot. So this is the second area of analysis. The third and fourth area we are going to discuss, but I hope that you don't have any questions. If you have, you can ask. Now, the third area is the questionnaires. Now, when it comes to a questionnaires, this method involves distributing questionnaires to the workforce, or this method involves distributing, for example, if I have two students into my class, I can distribute different questionnaires to both of you to check your knowledge, to check your tasks, that how you are able to perform them or not. So when it comes to a questionnaires, they can be answered very quickly, and however, they can be relatively inexpensive method. But individuals can remain anonymous if they want. That is an advantage of that, and it allows a quicker access of data. Interviewers can also fill their questionnaires in their own time, and it allows a greater number of people to take part. Why is that? Because now your identity is not revealed. These are simple, just questions that you write into a chits and you just distribute them among your team so that you would know that what can be the ideas, what could be the good ideas, what can be the weaknesses, what can be the strengths that you can work on. However, it has disadvantages as well. Disadvantage can be that the number of written questions can be low. Yes, for example, you distributed 40 questions into a team of 40 people. There can be a scenario where you only get back 20 questions. Why is that? Because not all of them are solving the questions, and you don't even know as a boss and a manager that who is solving and who's not until you ask them specifically. The third thing is that the questions are very rigid because they are not generic, and there can be obviously no immediate way to clarify an answer to a question as well, because you cannot expand them. Whatever you have written, it's done there. Users just might tend to exaggerate their response as well and to remain anonymous, and because anonymous, the interview may not take it serious. Now, the last part, that is looking at the existing documents. Now, whenever you are working as a problem solver, first of all, you need to do an analysis, and that what we are discussing right now. Now, in your analysis part, you also need to keep a document of all of the things. That means that you need to keep all of the things in record. You need to read all of the manuals. You need to know that how these things work. So analysis also includes looking at the existing documents. Sir, why is that? Why do I look at the existing document? This can be certainly that it allow analysts to get the basic idea that what can be the size of the problem, or if there is any problem, how can I resolve it? In which area that problem might occur? So uh, this can be supportive to you if you are solving a problem. This method basically allow information to be obtained which was not possible by any other method, and the analyst can see for themselves that how the current system is operating. However, there can be disadvantages that where disadvantages can be that it is very time consuming, and because of the analyst time needed, it is also relatively expensive method to use. So all these four areas of analysis, are these clear to you? Do you have any confusions? Okay, okay. Better, let's move on to now. Let's discuss this. 7.1.2. Now, just after your analysis part, you have the second part, that is that how you can record and analyze information about the current system. Now, whenever you are decomposing any problem, or whenever you want to record or analyze information about the current system, first of all, what you do is that you check your input, output, processing, and current problems, that how you are able to work on that. So the next stage in your processing requires the analyst to find out what input and output should be taking places, what processing is being done, what are the existing problems with the current system, and what are the user and information for the system. So one method the analyst can use to solve this problem is a data flow diagram that is right in front of you. This diagram basically tells you regarding the reservations when a booking flight, but you can, as you can see the properties of that, you have a problem right in middle. Now You have different boxes that are connected to this problem with an example of an arrow. With an example of an arrow, like this is telling you that if you want to check a flight, or if you want flight schedule check, this is going to done by a customer who makes a flight inquiry, right? If you are making a flight inquiry, you have all of these options. Your flight details can be entered into your system, your booking systems can be updated, and your e-tickets can be consumed. So this is basically a chart that is a representation of all of the processes that you can work. You also need to look into your user's requirement, as I'm discussing it again and again. What is going to be my user requirement? So I'm processing this task that when I want to solve a problem. So computer developers don't really understand how business works. Yes, that's a major problem. For example, if there is someone who is from a background of business, it would be extremely difficult for him to understand the technical terms in the computer sciences. However, if you take an example of a student with the computer science background, it would be difficult for him to understand the language or the syntax of the business administration. So this is a common problem in your computer sciences. So developers need to understand that how the system works and how can we work together. So user requirements basically requires natural language with a few technical details, and their purpose is to, what is the purpose? Their purpose is to allow the customer to check that what the analyst proposes, or what findings and what solutions it can give. So user requirements basically describe that what the customer does with the system, what is going to be his requirement. For example, if the companies employ people with disabilities, so should new hardware that works with the support of disabled people should be taken into account or not? This is going to be done in your user requirement part. The last title is your information requirement, and information requirement is the same. That means that I'm going to discuss that what are going to be my requirements, or like, for example, who my customers are, who my vendors are, who are the employees. This is your information requirement.